All right, and dang, how many videos have I done on this? Maybe two or three already, but we're talking about the. And honestly, guys, I've been thinking about this a lot over the weekend. Let me know if you really this is relevant to those who have. I believe it was the Frank and Wanda show where Cat Williams was on there earlier last week, and then we had, Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart on the Breakfast Club. Dang, it's been a crazy week within the let me just say the black comedian world, if you will, because there's been so much that's been going down. And we hear the Cat Williams thing, and I've done videos on that. Is Cat bitter? And Cat Williams talking about or goes in on Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart. And I've just been wondering, what within this community, and I'm probably going to end up doing a live stream on this because I really want to get some thoughts and opinions on it. So this video is kind of like the introduction to that, if you will. And Red Grant, he was actually the one who was doing the interview with Frank and Wanda. But then, if you sat back like I have and just watched videos on this from different YouTubers who have been bringing in or shedding more light, even Red Grant himself did about like a 12 or 16 minute YouTube video just explaining from his perspective what really went down, as well as his insight on the beef. I don't even know if beef is the right word. It just seems like a hot mess when you think about it. But just to give you the footnotes, basically Red Grant was there to pretty much do his interview, but then Wanda pretty much wanted Cat Williams to come on the show, but Cat was like, Red asked Cat to drive him to the station, which he did, and Cat wasn't even going to go in. I think he said, I was going to stay downstairs and whatnot because hey, this is your interview, so you do your thing, pretty much letting Red Grant have the shine. And then he went upstairs and Wanda came in and hugged Red and everything, but then didn't really show any kind of polite gesture to Cat, and pretty much was egging him on like little boy and stuff like that. Then eventually he came into the show, and I actually wondered about that too, because when you go back and watch that interview, it starts off with Red Grant for like maybe 3 minutes, if that. Then they shift to Cat Williams, and that leads to the whole thing about the Netflix, and he owns these specials and how many tickets sold. Then he talks about Tiffany Haddish and all the other comedians, and then him and Wanda briefly go at it because Wanda was kind of defending Tiffany Haddish. But when you are an interviewer or a reporter, you're not really supposed to voice your opinion. It's about what the person you're interviewing has to say, not really what you think and care about. Then, we briefly had Red Grant again, it was talking about, children and stuff like that, what they like to eat. And then then that's when Cat and Wanda had their back and forth, and that was it. Red Grant was treated like an afterthought because, Wanda was poking the bear, if you will, and Cat Williams. And, yeah, Red Grant just goes into detail about, but on break, stuff that wasn't shown in the actual interview because it was during break. Wanda was taking jabs at Cat again, talking about his kids and whatnot. So the roasting was kind of justified. And because, like her mentioning the jail and everything, I'm like, yo, those some low blows. I mean, especially somebody who has a lot of trouble with the law and everything, and he's trying to move forward with his life, and you're just going to throw that in his face. So, but like I said, we don't really know what happened off camera. I mean, Red Grant gave us some insight, but we don't know everything that was said. We just know that, Wanda was taking some jabs. So when Cat seemed savage, it's like, well, because he had a reason to be. Then, apparently Tiffany Haddish, called up, and I think she called Red, if I'm not mistaken, who she asked is like, hey, can you give me Cat's phone number? And, he was like, no, I'll make sure Cat gives you a call, which is good because, when I watched the Red Grant, video, I'm like, yo, that's a good, it's like, yeah, he didn't give Cat Williams' number out. He just said that, hey, I'll make sure he calls you. And that's just a stand-up guy right there. And then apparently those two were FaceTiming. Red Grant, saw them laughing and everything. He apologized, explained what he meant and stuff like that. And that was it. But then even when we move forward to the Emmys, he apologized. I believe he bowed down to her and stuff like that. And I really don't even know much about the whole like gun outside of the club situation. Apparently Wanda and her husband were out at the door waiting for Kat to show up, and then Kat ran, and apparently a gun fell from the husband's waist or something. I don't know. I really don't know too much about that. I just know TMZ after the Emmys was, walking after Kat, and in front of Kat, and he was like, I don't know what gun you talk about. If somebody pointed a gun out, why didn't they shoot it? And yeah, I really don't know much about that part, aside from probably Wanda just mad and her husband wanted to, to intimidate him or something. But really, let's just move on to the Breakfast. Well, even before the Breakfast Club, because I know Kevin Hart did like a Instagram live or something like that, just sounding like humble, pretty much, like rise above the shade and stuff like that. But then when we get to the breakfast, and this is where things get, I'm not going to lie, folks. I know that there is like a trimmed down or like a 10-minute clip on YouTube, Kevin Grant. I'm sorry, not Kevin. Kevin Hart checks Cat Williams, and then of course I watched the full interview a couple times, and I'm like, damn. This was a side of Kevin Hart never seen before. He's like, I've always been the humble guy, but I got time today. It's like, wow, like somebody kicked my sister's ball over the fence and I want it back. And here's my thing with this. I feel like on the Cat Williams side of the fence and then the Kevin Hart, Tiffany. Well, really, I felt like it was mostly Kevin Hart doing the talking. Like Tiffany barely said anything. It's like, I feel like, it's kind of like a Venn diagram where there are similarities when you meet in the middle, but then in the other parts of the circle, there are differences, because there are things I agree with from both sides, but then there are things I disagree with on both sides. Like when Cat Williams was spitting out the numbers for like the ticket sales and whatnot. Like, let me just say this. I'm not in his pockets. I don't know how much everything is. Like, the Pimp Chronicles apparently made over $24 million and stuff like that. But that doesn't surprise me because that special has been out for a while. And, he talks about the ownership. Once again, I don't know because I don't know what the contracts and paperwork look like. And the confusing part was he said like $2.4 million. But then Wanda and Frank were like, no, the tickets. I could be wrong. I think maybe Kat meant to say tickets, but he said dollars instead. But then Frank and Wanda corrected him saying tickets because he was listing off ticket sales. I believe that's when he was talking about the Netflix thing going on, Monique and whatnot. So I do think that he meant 2.4 tickets. But then you have, Kevin Hart, who was saying like those numbers are ridiculous. They're false. Let me just say it this way. I would say that Kevin Hart, because he literally said he had time to not be humble today. So really when he was just spitting, out facts and whatnot, I would possibly say that I agree with him on the numbers being inflated, because I would think that maybe somebody who's at the top of the game right now knows things that other people don't. Like, he knows how the system. I'm not saying Cat Williams doesn't, but I'm just saying that, let me take a pause on that real quick. And once again, this is when information kind of differs from both sides. When I want to mess the names up because they both begin with a K. When Kevin Hart was saying that the whole Netflix thing being based off of ticket sales is false. And because Cat Williams did say that earlier in his interview last week about the whole, like the Monique situation, selling out maybe 316,000, tickets on her last tour. And that's why her deal was, if memory serves, wasn't it like 500,000 or something like that? And then, with Cat Williams, he was saying like, 2.4 million tickets. And I think he said that his Netflix special was what, 3 million or so, something like that. So, like the ticket sales, like, if you ain't popping, go out there, do your work, even if it's for free and whatnot. And then, get your numbers up. But then Kevin Hart was like, the ticket sales aren't what do it. Here's my thing with that. And if you watch the New Edition story, you kind of know what I'm talking about. When Gerald Busby told Johnny Gill and Ralph Tresvant that, hey, go ahead and do this album with the New Edition, do the Heartbreak album. That way, when you do your solo albums, they'll blow up because they'll be popular, pretty much taking people to the side and telling them different things for the, just the group's sake. Maybe that's kind of what goes on because, as Kevin Hart said, it's a business. Think business, people. It wouldn't surprise me if maybe Netflix holds like Monique and whatnot at like a different platform than a Kevin Hart, a Dave Chappelle, a Chris Rock, a Amy Schumer. So maybe like the basis of which they paid those people was based on something that wasn't ticket sales. But when it came to Mo'Nique, they were talking about, you know, how you can't use your resume. But then when you listed off everything Amy Schumer did, everything Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle did, that not their resume? But I feel like, you know, it's just the simplicity. And I think Cat Williams and Kevin Hart were both correct when it's like, you know, they look at, okay, how much money are we going to put in this one person based off how much of a draw we feel they'll put in? Because once again, I feel like if they gave like Mo'Nique like 15, 13, 20 million dollars, they probably wouldn't get that much of investment back, because really how many people would click on a Mo'Nique special? I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. I mean, I honestly would, because I grew up with Miss Nikki Parker. Honestly, I never watched Precious. That movie I didn't feel like that was a movie I wanted to see. Like my sister, she watched it, my mom watched it, like, you know, but I don't feel like that was the kind of movie I would like to watch. I did enjoy Almost Christmas. I actually had the Blu-ray of that. I have the Parker's entire series on DVD. If I'm not mistaken, she was on Two Can Play That Game, and she was on Moesha as well. As I think, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the Parkers was a spinoff of Moesha. So I grew up watching Mo'Nique. But yeah, I feel like in today's time, most people who on the internet got Netflix, or this younger up and coming generation, they aren't as familiar with a Mo'Nique like I am. So they probably wouldn't click on Mo'Nique as fast as they would a Kevin Hart or Chris Rock or Amy Schumer, who I don't find personally funny, but she is successful. You know, her sold out tour. What did she do? Madison Square Garden. She had a best-selling book. She was in a movie as well that did extremely well at the box office. And that leads to my next point, you know, about these people being funny and not funny. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think. And I feel like even if I was in their position, I'd feel the same. It's just like, you know, well, honestly, with YouTube, honestly, I'm not making millions of dollars, but, you know, they are the occasional trolls or people who take time out of their day to post up like, this is stupid, stop talking, show the clips, this guy's just clickbait and all this stuff. It doesn't really matter what you think. I know I have an audience, because at the end of the month, I still get paid from YouTube, showing me that there are people out there who do enjoy my content. So, and that's the thing, because, and that's I think Gary Owens did, he talked about this on his podcast about the whole situation. Like, people who don't like you will go out of their way to write like a thesis about why they don't like you in the comment section, while people who do like you might like your video and they might comment something like great video and whatnot, but they don't go into detail as to why it's good. So really, that's why negative people tend to bring some people down, because the negative people aren't as mute. Like, they will share their opinions in the most obnoxious ways sometimes, and they get more attention than the people who actually comment one or two words saying they like the video. So at the end of the day, I mean, honestly, I've been going back through If Loving You Is Wrong, Tyler Perry's If Loving You Is Wrong on Hulu, and Tiffany Haddish is in the show. I didn't know that. I knew that. Sorry, car in the parking lot. So if you hear the background noise, there's some cars in the parking lot. But yeah, it's like I was going back through If Loving You Is Wrong. Like, I knew Tiffany Haddish. I didn't realize that was her when the show was first, you know, when it was first on the OWN network a couple years ago. But going back now, like, damn, she is, you know, yeah, funny. But let me just say this much. I will be going to theaters to go see the Kevin Hart Tiffany movie Night School. I am going to see that. Because when I first saw the trailer months ago, I'm like, this movie looks so freaking cheesy but I feel like I'll get some laughs out of it. I honestly do. And then the second, Nobody's Fool, Tyler Perry's movie Nobody's Fool, Tinka Sumter, Tiffany Haddish. Honestly, I'm going to see Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tinka Sumter is rocking the short haircut. I love that smile. Tiffany Haddish once again playing the ghetto ratchet, you know, black sister, but she did look pretty savage walking out of that wedding with the white dress and everything. But Whoopi Goldberg was my favorite part of the trailer, so I'm going to see her. And I am going to see the movies regardless. But just because I don't like someone in their humor doesn't mean that I don't think they're not funny at all. Like, they have their moments, because Kevin Hart is a perfect example. Like Well, I got, if I'm not mistaken, aside from What Now, I have all of Kevin Hart's specials on DVD and or Blu-ray. Even looking at my Blu-ray stack on the shelf right here, I got both ride-alongs. I got Think Like a Man 1 and 2, About Last Night, Central Intelligence. I love those movies. I love those movies. I mean, but as time goes on, and I feel like a lot of black people can attest to this, it's kind of like, you know, kind of like think about the Five Heartbeats, for example, or even The Temptation, those great, the classic black movies, you know. And when it comes to these black people in the music industry, it's, you know, they got a couple records on, you know, they've got a couple songs on the charts, but then they have to do the crossover record, the record where they feel like they might lose a lot of their black audience because they're trying to cross over. And then once they do that, that's when they'll start being black again. I feel like the same thing applies to the media when it comes to, you know, like, let's just talk comedians in this case. When you look at Cat Williams, like, again, just looking at, and I'm a Grown Little Man, classic. The rich white guy laugh. Seriously funny. You gonna learn today. Laugh. Well, no, that was Laugh My Pain. Seriously funny. Somebody come look at this. 2 + 2, not knowing what the. Oh, he said you ain't got no nipples. What was it? Let Me Explain. I mean, just so many gems from that. Just so many. Don't act like I'm crazy. All right, let's ride. But then when we get to What Now, it's kind of like, I only know about like the raccoon or something like that, and something about a pool table, going to Starbucks. But the Starbucks bit was my favorite part because of the fact that I relate to that. I don't drink coffee, so I would be in Starbucks just like Kevin Hart was. But to me, that wasn't that funny. My thing is this: I feel like as these stars get bigger and bigger, they become more mainstream, but then, you know, most of the stuff isn't written by them like it was. It's kind of like, you know, the white man is giving them stuff to read because they'll think it's funny. And really, when it comes to, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I just noticed on a lot of YouTube videos and whatnot, there are a lot of people like, you know, Kevin Hart isn't even that funny. I would disagree with him at the beginning, but then as time goes on, and I remember a couple years ago, I remember reading comments like this, you know, Kevin Hart is like, you know, that one little cousin you got who's funny for about 5 minutes, but then after that, it's kind of like, dude, just stop. He kind of reminds me of like Olaf, and I hate to use this example, but Frozen, my God, when that movie was out, Olaf, you know, when I first saw the guy, I'm like, yo, man, it's funny. But then after that, I was like, dude, you need to just shut up, man. It's old. You got a couple laughs, but it's old. That's how Kevin Hart is, you know, like he was funny, but now it's kind of like, I don't find him that funny because most of the stuff like Jimmy Kimmel. Let me just put it this way. No, Jimmy Fallon. When he was on there with Steve Irwin's son, the crocodile hunter, and the animals and whatnot. Then, you know, when he tried to call Dwayne Johnson a rock and he couldn't get through, but then Jimmy Fallon did. You could tell most of that stuff was staged. I did get a couple laughs out of it. I'm not going to lie, just because, say what you want about the jokes and whatnot, but Kevin Hart's facial expressions are like priceless. They just make the joke. But, you could just tell, like, looking at the crowd and whatnot, I feel like Kevin Hart really is appealing more to the white audience than the black audience. That's not saying I don't like the guy. That's not it. I'm just talking about the comedy. It's kind of like when I go to the Tyler Perry movies. Like I've said this before when I went to the Madea movies, like the Halloween movies. Going to the theaters, it's mostly white people in the seats. When it comes to the laughs, most of them are from the white people. Like most of that movie, I wasn't even laughing. It's like, man, I heard this joke like 1,000,000 times and stuff like that. Mainly because like the Tiffany Haddish type, the Kevin Hart type, the Tyler Perry type, it's really like, you know, that's how white people see us. I mean, I don't want to use the term like cooning and buffooning, but to be honest, that's how, unless, you know, black people are on like the sports arena and in the basketball court, football fields, in the entertainment industry, it's really like, you know, we really don't see a lot of black people in serious roles that get the accolades that like a goofy Kevin Hart or a ghetto ratchet Tiffany Haddish or a man in a dress like Tyler Perry get. You know what I'm saying? I hope somebody's following me on that. I mean, and I feel like, you know, listening to other YouTubers and looking at different comments and all, I feel like the consensus is, you know, those who are willing to, you know, kind of sell themselves and, you know, dance in front of the white man are the ones who make it to, I mean, honestly, not just with Hollywood. I feel like that goes for almost any job. If you're willing to kiss ass and whatnot, then you're the ones who make it up the top, rather than those who aren't, the bootlickers, are just pretty much stuck at the bottom or whatever. But here's my, and I've said this in every single video I've done about like Katt Williams and Tiffany Haddish. I mean, excuse me, like even Kevin Hart. Speaking on Kevin Hart and whatnot, and I really do agree with this. When it comes down to it, you know, you need to make your own opportunities. It's like when it comes to the Emmys and the Oscars. You know, we're when black people were like, you know, mad about, you know, this and that, boycott the Oscars and Emmys. I'm not gonna lie, if I had the opportunity to go, I would probably go. I ain't gonna lie. I don't watch the shows. I remember as a kid growing up, I mean, back when we had like the rabbit ears and we had no cable, that was all we could watch, ABC and whatnot. But I mean, if I was a celebrity and whatnot, I wouldn't not go. I mean, if I had the invitation, like, shoot, why not? It's like me not going isn't going to give me an Emmy any more than me going is if I'm not nominated. So why the hell not? But that's just my attitude towards it. I mean, like, in using my life as an example, you know, and I haven't gotten to this part of my Liberty University series on the channel. You know, if you're new to the channel, this is your first time visiting, I definitely recommend checking it out. Don't let the name The Haves and the Have Not review fool you, just because a majority of the videos are Tyler Perry focused, because I love the show. You know, I talk about my time as a Liberty University student when I was working there. I talk about anime, other TV shows, popular news and media, hence why I'm doing this video now. But yeah, definitely check it out. But you know, my frustration with the job is, you know, there are people that are moving up. I never asked for those promotions because I could tell it was a, you know, a buddy kind of thing. Like, you know, you're friends with so and so and then you get a promotion. I wasn't about that life, so I pretty much stayed where I was. Not disgruntled, but you know, I was just like, you know, it is what it is. But the reason I left the job is because, luckily enough, I created my own opportunity, and that's how I'm able to live off my YouTube channel, because I did that. No one else did it for me. You know, I made it, but you know, you all helped me get to this level by subscribing, liking the videos, commenting, sharing. So thank you all for that, and I give you all props as much as I can on this channel. But that's how I looked at it, because when it comes down to it, you know, fresh out of college, you know, you got to figure out something. You know, you're not always going to be handed everything. And it is more satisfactory. Like, even when I quit the job, I wasn't making quite as much as I did when I was working there, but I took pride in that. It's like, you know what, I might have to struggle a bit more, cut back on a few things, but at the end of the day, I'm living on my own terms, as opposed to, you know, making the school a lot of money doing this and that. Kind of like, you know, when they go in these movies and whatnot, comedy tours, making the promoters and, you know, the people who signed the checks a lot of money, but you're the one who's bringing all that money in and you're being paid in bits and pieces and peanuts. That's how I felt. But so one thing I'm not going to knock Kevin Hart for, regardless as to whether or not I still think he's as funny as I did years ago, he is creating opportunity. I believe, if I'm not, I don't want to mess this up, the Laugh Out Loud Network, he's creating a lot of opportunities for other black comedians to, you know, do specials, be in skits and everything. So that's one thing I'm not going to fault that man for. Not to mention the fact, like, I follow him on social media, one of the hardest working people I've ever seen. You know what, if he's not on the set of a new movie or whatever, he's on a TV show or whatever for an interview, or he's in the gym, you know, putting up the weights, or, you know, running, or whatever the case may be, or spending it with his family. And yeah, you know, the whole cheating on his pregnant wife thing, you know, that is, I mean, hey, that's his personal business, whatever. But in terms of the man's work ethic and whatnot, there's a lot to be learned from Kevin Hart, especially with his social media game. He really rode that, and then, you know, that really helped out his career. Hence why I'm glad I was able to adapt social media to what I'm doing now, as opposed to just mindlessly scrolling through Facebook and Twitter all day and Instagram. I do that for my own sake, promoting the channel and whatnot. So we just live in that day and age where you either get on the boat of social media and you move forward, or you kind of stick to your old ways and you're not really bringing in the bread you used to. You know, like I think like actually a YouTuber who did like an hour-long discussion about this really brought it home, talking about the Monique Netflix boycott thing. Like, you know, once again, not knocking her, because she definitely is a pillar in the comedian you know, the world, the comedian world, because of everything she's accomplished. But the thing is, like, after you won that, was it the Oscar for Precious, you really didn't see a lot from Mo'Nique. You know, she really didn't. She kind of like took that break. I mean, like, she kind of, and I don't want to say fell off the map, but you know, I didn't really catch her on the radar. And then the next thing I know, the next time I see her, that's when she lost a lot of weight. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Okay, now, you know, I wonder what she's been up to. I mean, hey, I mean, after that, she came back and, you know, did Almost Christmas, and that's really the only thing I know of. But that just goes to show what I was talking about earlier. Like, this newer generation really aren't familiar with Mo'Nique, because the Parkers was a great show, but it didn't really hit. It didn't really make the impact that Everybody Hates Chris, The Dave Chappelle Show. Just to give a few examples, I mean, even Soul Plane, like, I believe Kevin Hart was like, you know, that's the most bootleg movie of all time. It's like a not a cult classic, but like a black folks movie. I mean, to me, Soul Plane is up there with Babs, you know, Black American Princesses, and those movies that get like terrible box office results, but I still laugh my ass off every time. I got both of them on DVD and I love them to death. 27 years old, it's 2018, and I still love those movies as much as the first time I watched them. I love those films. But I mean, yeah, so Kevin Hart's doing his thing, and then Mo'Nique, you know, and again, I can understand her as like, you know, why I got put in so much work at everything I did. That's understandable, but to stay relevant, like, you know, people really aren't going to look at what you did 10 or 15 years ago and give you the millions of dollars you want, because it's how many people are going to click on that special. So with Mo'Nique, you know, she did more social media and whatnot. Yeah, that's really another thing. You know, a lot of these comedians, if you don't see them on social media, then you're pretty much lost in the shuffle, because everybody nowadays is getting a comedy special. But yeah, Tiffany Haddish, I believe she says she has like a, you know, like a event, like a comedy special coming up where she's going to be doing some stand up, but then bringing up other comedians too. So it's like, you don't have to feel obligated to boost up people, you know, other people, but it is a nice gesture kind of too, because I mean, it depends. A lot of people didn't make it to where they were or are now because they did it on their own. Somebody tried to lift or help them, you know, advance every step of the way. It's true, like, you know, everybody that starts with you can't finish with you. They can't move along the journey with you. But at the same time, if you have the opportunity to help someone out, then do it. And, you know, Kevin Hart being, I mean, he was not being humble, because he said he wasn't, you know, talking about how he's at the top of the game, which is honestly indisputable. Will that still be true within the next 2 to 3 years? Maybe, maybe not. But I will admit, while the man is at the top of the plateau at the moment, he is using his platforms, his money, to bring other people up. And you can't do anything but applaud the man for that. I mean, like he was saying, and I mean, I do agree, it's like we're complaining about the problem, and then when somebody is trying to create a solution, you want to complain about those people. I completely agree with that. And Katt Williams is somebody, it's hard to figure out. I feel like it's hard to put my finger on Katt Williams while I think about him. You know, like Tiffany and Kevin both agreed, and honestly, I feel like a majority of the listeners do agree. Katt Williams is just like a comedic genius. I mean, poor little Tink Tink. The purpose of the silent letter. The difference between white people and black people waiting on the bus that's late. Just, you know, like his son making Pimp to Sit. Those classic Katt Williams moments are just some of my favorite stand-ups. But as time went on, you know, I began to compare him and Kevin Hart, where Kevin Hart is like a corny guy, but his delivery is, you know, funny, his timing, his facial expressions, and you can tell they're jokes. With Katt Williams, you know, as time went on and the more I began to listen to his jokes, you know, whether it be Michael Jackson or, you know, that New Year's thing he did with Steve Harvey and whatnot, in a way you can kind of tell that Katt Williams, his jokes are really more mean-spirited than actual jokes in some aspects. But at the end of the day, I do find Katt Williams has definitely made me laugh a lot more than Kevin and Tiffany. But I just will say that, you know, they're all funny in their own right, because just because I don't like the specific comedy of a Tiffany Haddish or a Kevin Hart, they're still getting paid. And I mean, Tiffany Williams said it excuse me, Tiffany Haddish said it correct when it's like, I mean, haters going to hate. I mean, it doesn't matter as long as that my checks keep getting bigger and bigger. And I'm just like, hey, I mean, shoot, as long as those checks don't bounce and they keep getting bigger and bigger, then so be it. Just like you're on YouTube. I mean, yeah, there are haters, there are trolls, but every time you click on a video, that's views, meaning advertisements, meaning you're generating money from me. So whatever, hey, hate if you want to, but I'm still going to keep doing what I'm doing. But, you know, and that's the real thing that should be taken away from this. No matter how you feel about a specific person, whether you like them or not, they're still making dough. I mean, you can't fault them for that. I mean, even if there's no need of being disgruntled or distasteful towards someone because they aren't your cup of tea. Well, guess what? Maybe their brand of tea isn't for you. And I'm not going to sit up here and just rant on, Tiffany Haddish, she's just being ghetto. Every time she's on an interview, she's cooning and whatnot. Doesn't really matter. I don't have the time nor energy to put into that. I just know that the woman's making moves. She's getting this money. I could definitely see why people would feel disgruntled, because if they've been in the game for some time, and again, Tiffany Haddish has been in the game for a while, but she hasn't quite been on the radar as, you know, some of the more popular female black comedians who have done stand-ups and whatnot. I will admit I was taken aback because at the beginning of 2018, it just seemed like Tiffany Haddish just came out of nowhere, and she's been here for a while. She's been in TV shows and making cameo appearances and stuff like that way before Girls Trip. But then all of a sudden, you know, next thing you know, she's in this movie, that movie, Netflix deal. It just seemed like, correct me if I'm wrong, but just mentally thinking about the timeline, it seemed like in the midst of the Monique boycott, when that was the big thing in the news, that's when Tiffany Haddish just really started blowing up. Talk shows, interviews, advertisements and whatnot. Coincidence? But yeah, so at the end of the day, you know, I just feel like it is sad to see, because, you know what, in the midst of the white rappers, you know, MGK and Eminem, they going back and forth, whatever. I really didn't keep up with that. It is sad because, you know, then, you know, we talk about Mike Epps and everything like that. Then Cat Williams choosing drugs, and I don't know, but it's just like sad because when you think of it this way, and think about what Kevin Hart said, the fact that, you know, the black community is going off about not having a lot of opportunities and stuff like that, Oscars, Emmys, roles for black people, comedians. And we're trying to make that change, but then other powerful black people in the industry are complaining about it. It's sad to me because the more infighting going on amongst the handful of black artists out there, the less opportunities being created, because while they're taking time going back and forth at each other, that's less energy, money, effort being put into creating more roles and stuff like that for black people. In the meantime, you look at Will Ferrell, Adam Sandler, Steve Martin, Jerry Seinfeld. I honestly don't know too many white comedians like that, but they, you know, work together for the most part. Like in a lot of movies, you'll see a lot of them working with like the same actors over and over again. You know, they pretty much got their community set. Like black people, look, I get it, because there's always competition, whether it be sports, entertainment, music, whatever the case may be. So you're not going to get along with everybody. Like I get it. Like it's not expected that there will be a day where Cat Williams and Kevin Hart are going to, you know, put aside their differences and whatnot. I ain't gonna lie, that'll be pretty damn interesting to see those two in a movie together. But I get it. Like there's competition, but you know, there's competition, but then there's being bitter, then there's hating. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I could see valid points on both sides of this argument. And yeah, I do find it weird, you know, like Tiffany Haddish, you know, she gets the FaceTime with Cat Williams. He apologized, everything is cool. He apologized again at the Emmys. Then TMZ goes up to her and she's like, there was never a problem between me and Cat Williams. But then when you get to the Breakfast Club, Tiffany really didn't say anything off cuff, because remember, Kevin was doing most of the talking. But the one thing that did kind of like was when, you know, I think Angela Yee asked her about, you know, the Cat Williams thing, and it's like, yeah, it must have hurt because I'm sure you were a fan. It's like, no, I still am a fan. I'm like, okay, yeah, she's taking the high road because those two made amends. But then it's like, when I heard he was mad at me, I'm like, the first thing that came to my mind, like, did I steal your man or whatever? Did I sleep with your man? I'm just like, oh man. And then everybody was laughing. But then Charlemagne, obviously showing that he doesn't like Cat Williams, was the biggest laugh of them all. And I'm not gonna lie, I love the Breakfast Club, love most of the interviews, Charlemagne, Angela Yee, DJ Envy. But you can definitely tell when there's some bias put into that. So I just feel like that was a bit unnecessary, you know, for her to insinuate him being gay when he's not. I feel like that was just the one thing that made me kind of side-eye Tiffany. Like, I mean, if you made amends with somebody, especially like, look, especially the fact that he bowed down and everything in public, like, you know, the private FaceTime conversation is one thing. And I feel like if you do something quote unquote face to face with somebody, whether it be FaceTime or in face to face person, and you squash your beef, then when you're on a big platform like the Breakfast Club, taking a jab at the guy who literally apologized to you over FaceTime and in person really isn't a good thing. Like, you can, some people just shake it off like, she was just making a little joke. Yeah, but was it really necessary? She could have just said, you know, like, you know what? Hey, he apologized and that was that. Because that's when Kevin Hart took the reins. Like, you know what? I'm going to let my sister keep it classy. And then he pretty much did all the talking. So, yeah, that kind of made me look at her like, but again, once again, it is what it is. There's not always going to be peace within the ranks. But again, it's just a shame because I feel like most of the time when it comes to the black community, it's more like I got mine, so you should get yours, as opposed to other people helping others, you know, come up. But that's just my 2 cents. But at the end of the day, you know, like Red Grant said at the end of his video, you know, Kevin, stop it. Tiffany, stop it. Kat, stop it. Just stop this. It's like nothing is coming from this, nothing positive. So I don't know, but what do you all think? Like, I'll definitely do a live stream on this. I didn't expect this video to be as long as it was. I just been thinking about this for a while. Regardless as to whether or not you think somebody is funny, if they're still making money, obviously they have an audience. Maybe you're just not a part of it. As I said before, I don't feel like Kevin Hart is as funny as he used to be. I feel like he definitely appeals more to the white audience than the black audience. Tiffany Haddish in the same respect. I mean, yeah, the ghetto ratchet, you know, black friend, sister, co-worker. Just like Cat Williams, how did he come up? Pimp, Money Mike, Pimp Lame Slipback and whatnot. So that's pretty much all I had to say. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Honestly, if you made it to the end of this video, kudos to you. Let me know in the comment section if you want me to do a live stream. I would love to get your thoughts in a live reaction kind of format. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I'll talk to you all soon. But also, again, I am definitely going to theaters to see Night School, and I'm going to see Nobody's Fool, so I hope you do as well.